Hi, my name is Thea Sugarman Lee, and I am 46 years old, and I currently live in University Place, which is near Tacoma, Washington. I've been asked to do a video and maybe give you some information about what it's like to live with a chronic illness. My chronic illness is actually a dysautonomic syndrome, and I'm going to read it for you because it's a little complicated. It's called neurogenic orthostatic hypotension with partial compensatory tachycardia, distal autonomic nervous neuropathy, and reduced pseudomotor function distally. So we break that down. Basically, it just means that my brain is not working with my blood pressure, my heart, and when I stand up, my blood pressure likes to bottom out and my heart rate likes to spike, or sometimes my heart rate likes to go way down to maybe 50 beats per minute. And then the distal autonomic nervous neuropathy just means that my hands and my feet are really numb, and I've had to live with that for a very long time. Quite often I don't feel burns on my hand if I'm cooking or getting something out of the oven, so I have to be super careful when I do things like that. Be very aware. And lastly, the pseudomotor function basically just means that I'm not regulating my body temperature very well at all. So somebody who can go out when it's hot and maybe sweat, I'm not able to do that. Maybe I will be midwinter and all of a sudden I'm pouring sweat because I can't regulate my body temperature. So that's kind of my diagnoses.
Thea, would you tell the readers about some of your favorite hobbies and likes, things you do?
Absolutely. One of the fun things that I really like to do is travel. I've had some wonderful opportunities over the years to be able to travel all over the world, and it has been so much fun. When I started getting really sick several years ago, I didn't let it stop me from traveling. I thought maybe I could just push through it. So I did do some traveling with a wheelchair. It takes a little bit more time, effort, accommodation, but it can be done. I've definitely slowed down on that now, but we just recently got back from Eastern Washington over at the Cascade Mountains visiting family, and that was a wonderful, beautiful way to experience the other side of the mountains. And I actually traveled on an air mattress in the back seat. Some of my other likes. I absolutely love to cook. I used to cook really foo-foo, complicated food, and I'm no longer able to do that. So I've made some accommodations in my kitchen. I have a really super high bar stool. It's actually higher than a normal bar stool. That allows me to sit at the stove and cook if need be, prep vegetables or whatever needs to be at the countertop. I also have purchased a countertop convection oven that fits 9x13, so I don't have to bend over to the oven, because of course if I bend over, chances are I'm probably going to fall into the oven, and nobody really wants that, at least as far as I know. So I've accommodated for that. And lastly, I have introduced Instapots into our home cooking to make sure that we can get some really good flavorful food that I'm not actually having to sit and stir and babysit, because I just don't have the energy to do that. Lastly, I would say that one of my new favorite things to do in the last probably year and a half or so is to start caring for houseplants. I found that I really missed being outside, and I used to love to garden, and I used to love to prepare the harvest vegetables by water bath canning, pressure canning, things like that. But I'm not able to really do that without a lot of help anymore. So I have been introducing houseplants into my home to bring the outside in because I pretty much am housebound. I have lived in, well, I would say what people now call quarantine or self-isolation for the last 2.5 years. So I very rarely leave the house. So I needed something to bring the outside in, and it's been a joy to be able to do that.
Can you explain a bit about the dysautonomia syndrome, what it's like for you, and how you learned that you had it?
Absolutely.
And the comorbidities.
And the comorbidities, absolutely. So when our son, my husband and I have a son Sebastian, who's now 21. When he was 3, I was in 2 car accidents 2 weeks apart. Neither one of them were my fault, and both cars were totaled. Unfortunately, I ended up having 7 surgeries and procedures. I was deemed 36% whole body impaired. I lost my therapeutic massage career due to not being able to use my arms anymore. And several years after that, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. And then a couple years after that, I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue. I had started getting some weird symptoms that really didn't fit into fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue, but the doctors weren't able to say what they were from. So I would have postural hypotension, which just means a lot of times that you stand up too quickly and then you have that moment of, whoa, and then off you go. There were some other symptoms that I had that were very mild with heart issues, heart racing, shortness of breath, things like that. But they weren't anything to be concerned about. But it didn't really, I don't know, it didn't fall into any categories. When my husband needed to have a 2-part low back fusion. Our son was 15 at the time, and he was struggling quite a bit as a high-functioning autistic guy, and he had basically shut down, and we were really struggling at how to help him the best that we could. When Richard had the surgery, there were some complications, and he ended up having to stay in the ICU, and then instead of having an overnight visit, it turned into a 5-day visit. We scrambled. Thankfully, we had a friend to come and stay with Sebastian, but I was really torn. Do I stay with my husband? Do I stay with my son? My son needs me. He's not doing well. My husband's not doing well. What do I do? I'm not able to work. I'm scared. And it kind of triggered this emotional stress for me. 3 weeks later, he had to go in for the second part of the surgery, and it was supposed to be just a day surgery. He had the surgery. We brought him home. Unfortunately, he had a really bad reaction. We tried taking him to the local ER. The local ER treated us very poorly, and we ended up having to scramble and take him to Seattle, where he then spent another 5 days, where then again we had to scramble to find somebody to take care of Sebastian. So the doctor believes, and it is the belief of those who diagnose dysautonomic syndromes, that emotional trauma or stress can actually trigger the symptoms and actually kind of activate what goes on in your body. Unfortunately, dysautonomia is, if you break it down to the simplest terms, it's your autonomic nervous system not communicating with the brain. The autonomic nervous system is responsible for so many of your body parts. The largest being that your gut is being the largest autonomic nervous system. The blinking of the eyes, your breathing, your heart rate, your blood pressure. It goes on and on and on. Blood pooling. So when you stand up and your brain is supposed to tell all of those veins in your legs to tighten up, and when your brain forgets to tell your body to do that, the veins relax, and then all the blood just stays in the bottom of your body and doesn't return. So there's a lot of things that can go wrong. So I'm going to go ahead and list and read, because I actually have quite a few comorbidities. And unfortunately, as you have this active chronic illness, comorbidities just keep coming, and you just have to keep managing the symptoms. There's really nothing else that you can do. There's no cure for dysautonomia. There's no cure for neurogenic orthostatic hypotension. And so let me just go ahead and share with you what I deal with. So, I already talked about the fact that I don't regulate my body temperature with the sotomotor and the distal neuropathy. One of the things that I have, it's called mast cell activation syndrome. It's actually the lesser, which there is a more severe called the mast cell activation disorder. Broken down into the simplest terms is that my body just makes allergens, and I'm basically allergic to my own body. There's no rhyme or reason for me to have an anaphylactic or hive or any other type of allergic reaction. My body just produces these reactions to it. And so I live with that. That's one of the things you get to live with. I live with chronic migraines. Chronic migraines are ones that you have more than 15 a month. I actually usually have 3-4 a week, if not more. Again, I have chronic fatigue syndrome. It's more on the severe side. Same with my fibromyalgia. Both of them have been diagnosed as moderate to severe. I also deal with severe blood pooling in my lower extremities. Well, all my extremities, but my lower extremities are severe, where my arms are moderate. I have undiagnosed gastroparesis. Gastroparesis is a condition where your stomach doesn't empty. So food will actually sit in your stomach and your upper intestines for hours and hours. You get very nauseous. Food doesn't sit very well. You end up throwing up a lot, and it doesn't pass through. So you get a lot of other unpleasant situations going on there. For me, it's considered undiagnosed. 9 years ago, I had gastric bypass due to some type 2 diabetes that ended up being insulin dependent, meaning that the meds that I had for the type 2 diabetes no longer were working, and my body was requiring insulin. So my endocrinologist had suggested gastric bypass, which I went ahead and did. Gastroparesis at the most severe stage. To help with it, they give you gastric bypass. So the diagnostic tool that they use, which is an emptying of the stomach test, I can't do. So I actually have all of the symptoms and deal with and live with gastroparesis, but they can't give me an official diagnosis of it, but they treat me just like I have it. I also have Ehlers-Danlos syndromes type 3, which is a very mild form, and basically what it is as a hypermobility of the musculoskeletal system. So you get some people can get a lot of subluxations and joints going out and muscles being loose, and you can stretch more than you really should, things like that. And yeah, it is what it is. I don't know what else to say about that except that you have it and you live with it, and it can be very uncomfortable. Okay, those are all my comorbidities. It's quite a few, sorry.
And how do you manage the dysautonomia?
Okay, so I think there's a lot. I have this thought process that the more tools that you have in your toolbox, the better equipped you are to handle a new symptom coming in. So I am not opposed to Western medicine. I'm not opposed to Eastern medicine. I'm not opposed to alternative care. I embrace it all because I truly believe that you have to treat the whole body. So I think that it's really important for my mind to be in the right place. So I am constantly making sure that I am reading back to myself positive things, because positive input gets positive output. So that might sound hokey, but I truly believe that it works. I also listen to hertz sounds at different vibrations to help with that. If you look into any Tibetan singing bowls or anything like that, it's a really interesting study. I also have a full Western prescription of medication that I take, and I'm very thankful for it. It has helped me enormously, and I will never, if it's helpful, I'm never going to say no to it, but if it gets to the point where it's no longer helpful, I'm very happy to go off of it. I also do alternative care. I see a massage therapist 2 to 4 times a month. He is fantastic. He actually does Wat Po Thai massage, which in Western Washington, there are very few practitioners who offer this. Basically, it's done with your clothes on, passive yoga stretches that he puts you in so that you're not hurting yourself, and then he uses acupressure. And then on the off times of that, he uses Paul St. John's neuromuscular re-education, as well as a lot of different other mobilities that go into a cervical massage. And he works the front, the sides, the back, and that helps with stabilization and the migraines. I also have a plethora of at-home tools that I use, and I have a TENS unit, which is electrical stimulation on these pads. I have an acupressure activator that's manual. I have one that is electric. I use an acupressure mat that I lay on that's just this pad, and it's got these little really super spiky hard flowers that come out, and you lay on it and it helps to stimulate those acupressure points. And let's see, what else do I use? Oh, I use hot packs, cold packs. I found this really neat thing called a Kalo patch online that actually works. It's this neuroreceptor pain blocker. I take arnica oil, rub it all over. I also take arnica tablets. I also have a topical prescription cream that I can put on. And let's see what else. Oh, one of the biggest things is compression stockings. Compression stockings for my blood pooling is essential. They're 20 to 30 mercury, and I wear those every day. It's important to do that, and I don't go anywhere without them. I also have an electric wheelchair for when I go out. I don't actually, I'm not able to walk for more than 2 or 3 minutes before my blood pressure bottoms out and my heart rate goes up. So sitting in a wheelchair is the best option for me. And let's see, what else do I do? Oh, the very best thing that I have gotten to do, and I just started this, is I actually got a permanent port placement. You can't really see it, but it's this little hard round, I hope that didn't gross anybody out, but it's this little hard round silicone, and it's got a hose, a tube, a catheter that goes in, and I get IV saline infusion daily. I get a liter each day, Monday through Thursday, and then on Fridays I get 2 liters of saline, and it takes about 4 hours for 1 liter of saline to go through. Once a week I have a home health nurse come, and she puts in my catheter and gets me ready for the week. Lastly, I take a lovely amount of supplements in my foods as well as by mouth. I take a 10 blend mushroom powder. I drink teas like pu'er and rubios for inflammation. I take morgana leaves and steep those for energy. I do a multivitamin that has prebiotics, probiotics, omegas, all the good stuff, organic good stuff. I take apple cider vinegar tablets, and let's see, I think, oh, and lots of water. I mean, lots of water, 3, 4, I try to do 3 or 4 of these a day and get them in all the time.
And so, what does a typical day look like? Or do you have typical days?
Well, that's a good question. I think it really depends on the time of year. We live in Western Washington, and unfortunately, for most of the year, it's kind of wet, cold, damp, and those really bother my body so much, and it drains my energy, and it just makes me feel really yucky. Those kinds of days, I'll see increases of migraines and increase of pain and decrease of energy levels, and I will spend the majority of my time in bed. On summer days like now, it's the most glorious time for me. The sun is out, the weather is not overly hot, and I can be out. My energy levels are a little bit more. So on good days, I love to come out into my living room, enjoy, talk to my husband, my son if they're here, read on my Kindle if nobody is here, visit online with my social media. I've got a close group of people with whom I have a support group and chat with. So yeah, the typical day, I don't leave the house very often. I truly am pretty much housebound.
So what is something that you wish that other people knew about your condition or knew about how you deal with it?
I think the biggest thing that I would like for people to truly understand is that chronic means long term. It's so beautiful when people have compassion and kindness, and when they first see and understand, they have this well of compassion for you right away, and it's so beautiful. And then pretty soon it gets out of sight, out of mind, and then the next time they see you, they're kind of confused and scratching their head thinking, you're still dealing with this? It's like, yeah, chronic means really super long time, if not forever. Now, I am open to a miracle. If God wanted to heal me, I am open to it. Please, I'm ready. But if he chooses not to, if I live with this, that's okay too. and that just means that I have to manage it. So chronic means long term, and I would much rather have somebody come over and come for a quick visit, even if I'm in my jammy jams and I haven't showered for 2 weeks because I don't have the energy to get out of bed and take a shower and visit for just a little bit, because there's nothing as heartwarming and beautiful than to be remembered. And it's too difficult to ask people and expect people to come to your house and pick you up and put your 50-pound wheelchair into their car, and then when you get someplace to take it out, and then when you're done put it back in, and then when you get home unload it. That's a lot. That's a big commitment for anybody, and you learn that it just isn't always feasible. And that doesn't mean that the person doesn't care. It doesn't mean that the person doesn't love you. It just means that it just isn't working. It just doesn't work. So I live my life virtually, pretty much online, and I love having a social media platform where I can share what my life is like.
And are there any bucket list items or goals that you have for this coming year?
I think the biggest thing that I'm really thinking about, we're right in the midst of COVID right now, and it's very interesting because I've been living a self-isolated quarantine lifestyle for a couple years, where I have my delivery of groceries come and I don't go anywhere, and it's been very difficult on other people. So I tried to start to do some encouraging little Instagram posts of encouragement when the quarantine started, just maybe some tips and tricks or encouraging words. So I would like to just continue to share on my social media platform and continue to allow that to be a place where people can understand and get a true, realistic look at what life can be like with somebody who has a chronic illness. The good days, the bad days, the frustrating days. And I am really appreciating the wonderful reception that I have gotten on social media. So anyway, thank you so much. If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to leave a comment below.